while the bulk of criminal justice resources can be focused on medium and high-risk offenders. Now this is going to be the proxy sample of the proxy that we have. And if you notice at the top, it indicates for the officer that this proxy is going to be completed on all criminal arrests, including in-custody arrests, referrals, means criminal traffic, and it also gets into the detail where summons and release, as well as ordinance violations that could otherwise be charged criminally, such as retail theft or disorderly conduct. The top of the page is just personal information, the officer that's assigned to the case, and then whether it's an ordinance, misdemeanor, or felony that is being handled. Now the proxy data section you see midway down through, that is a simple 3-question tool and scoring process that has been validated and is currently being used in other states. Once the questions are answered, the total score will be computed down at the bottom of that section. And then based off of the risk level classification rating, as you look down at the bottom of the form, it'll be broken down into low risk, medium risk, or high risk. So if you have, let's say, a UW Stout student that gets in a fight downtown, and that Stout student is cooperative, there's no injuries, but there's minor property damage to a storefront window. What we would indicate on there, and let's say that by computing the data, that person is low risk. We would then divert to the diversion program, and then we would indicate on the form, if you notice just underneath the proxy data section, there's 4 other areas of consideration. One is restitution. And if the person wants restitution for the damage to the window, we would indicate that box. And then that information would be sent forward and then handled accordingly. Now there's also a section there that talks about military service. And the purpose for that is if the person has served in the military, we want to make sure that that person is given further options for VA benefits and those types of things, and we put that person in the contact with that. Now as far as for official use only at the bottom of the form, that is not going to be for the officer as far as doing the criminal history check, CCAP, or checking with jail records. That's going to be the Deferred Prosecution Coordinator, Deanna, that's going to be handling that and confirming. So any of the answers that are given out there in the field by the offender, they actually won't be confirmed until Deanna has a chance to confirm them later on. Now, the question might be, what if the person is not cooperative and swearing, refuses to even participate in this proxy? What will happen is the person at that time will not be deferred. Person will most likely be arrested, taken into jail, and if the person continues to be uncooperative, jail personnel will also administer the proxy. They do have the ability to do that. Now the decision-making matrix is for law enforcement officers. This is a sample of what Eau Claire County currently uses. And if you notice under item 2 up at the top for the instructions, it talks about officers verify data by using criminal history check, CCAP, jail records. Eau Claire does this, we will not. We understand that when we're in the field, we've got so many other things going on, and it's a concern for our officers' safety to be able to spend an additional 20 minutes to 30 minutes trying to check the validity of the CCAP records, jail records, and the criminal history. And so, again, that will be not included in our matrix that we have. But the rest of the matrix will be similar in that when the proxy is not required, it'll outline those instances. Uniform traffic citations, non-criminal ordinance citations such as underage drinking, no action taken by law enforcement, probation holds, warrants, and KPSs. And then it also indicates when the proxy is required. And that's similar to what you saw on the previous slide, right at the heading of where officers can read that. So then you ask, well, what about like domestic related situations or substantial battery or sexual assault? You know, is that something that can be deferred? And that will never be deferred, and it's outlined there also. And it even talks about crimes of terrorism. In today's world, we wanted to make sure that that was in there. Now, the factors to consider, these are the 4 areas: previous diversions, probation and parole. Is restitution involved? Property owner will be able to want to get their storefront window repaired. And if there's a situation where, as I used as an example before, the person is deferred, he was cooperative, he met low-risk conditions, but the person wanted restitution paid, I wanted to point this out that at the top of the form, it'll be marked yes under refer to pre-charge diversion program. And to be able to ensure that this person does the necessary follow-up, we're looking at having a card that's kind of like an index card that'll have the description of what that person has to do in the next few days to be able to contact the diversion program coordinator. And we're looking at, Sarah, I think it's 72 hours, is that person will have 72 hours to be able to make sure that they come into contact, and then that coordination is made between the program coordinator and that offender to make sure that the necessary steps of restitution are paid. So probation and parole, I just want to mention there, the likelihood of somebody being deferred if they're on paper is slim to none. So that most likely won't take place, but it'll be an indicator on the one of the factors for that. And if I can go back, I want to point out where there are comments that can be made down in the comment section, just above the risk level classification. If there's any other thing that you want the program coordinator to be aware of at the point of contact out there, it's important that that officer fill out that and indicate that. So when they're making their determination later on, that'll have influence. So in closing, what I'd like to point out is the bottom line is that the officer there in the field that are handling the different cases and are called to a criminal matter, that officer has the final decision whether to defer, warn, cite, or arrest at that point in time. So with further ado.
But I wanted to just mention one other little thing before you go on break, is that what we're talking about here, they're also talking about at the state level and doing at the state level and in many other counties. And not only at the state level, but Chairman Rasmussen and Ms. Benedict went to the National Association of Counties, also known as NACO, and as I understand it, that these discussions are going on a national level as well, and the report back was that we're on the right track, and this is what we have to do.
So thank you. So my office just this year started implementing a new pre-charge diversion program that is used to divert either first-time offenders or low-risk offenders from the traditional criminal justice system. Now, it's beneficial to offenders because it diverts them from the traditional system that can cause more harm than good. I can't tell you how many times on initial appearance days, Tuesdays at 10:45, defendants are sitting in the hall room waiting and waiting and waiting. They meet with the public defender, Donna, I saw her around here, and then they have to wait for their case to come to court. Usually boils down to at least 2 hours sitting in the hallway waiting for their case to get called to enter usually a not guilty plea. But what's problematic with that is you get a 19, 20-year-old stout student who is spending a couple hours with the same sex offender, burglary, drug dealer in the hallways, and that creates some problems with evidence-based practices that we're intermingling low-risk to high-risk offenders for a substantial period of time, which can cause more harm than good. So this gives offenders kind of a second chance who did a certain offense that is a suitable offense that Dunn County determined was appropriate. With our internet system and CCAP, it allows offenders to not have one mistake on their criminal history affecting their employment, their ability to get housing, and allows them to remain off of CCAP. It's a huge benefit for offenders. And then it provides an educational component. I'll talk more about that later. It's also beneficial to my office, the court system, the judges who are very overworked, and law enforcement. I view it as being smart on crime, not light on crime. It allows my office to spend more time, and law enforcement to spend more time building good cases for those medium to high risk offenders. It boils down to my office doesn't have the staff or the time to take every case to trial. It just can't happen. So if we spend our time and resources on these high risk, medium risk offenders who are committing serious crimes in Dunn County, we can divert some of those low risk offenders who will self-correct. And it will save taxpayers time and money as less resources are being associated with trials and court hearings. So to be eligible to participate in the pre-charge diversion program, the person needs to be low risk or a first-time offender. And there's a little bit of leeway for a medium risk. Sometimes on the proxy, someone who's young age may automatically be medium risk. So if it's a certain offense that they're on the low to medium risk border, it's possible that they could still be in the program. Beginning June 1st, law enforcement will actually be referring defendants directly to my office. Since my office has a coordinator already, the prosecutors in my office are already diverting certain offenses, more or less state patrol offenses, to the pre-charge diversion program already. They also cannot be a prior participant in any other county's pre-charge diversion program. There are several other counties that are implementing the same type of program. Then they have to have committed one of the eligible offenses, which are listed here. So there's a number of ordinance and misdemeanor offenses. As Commander Swartz indicated, felony offenses generally are not appropriate for a pre-charge diversion program. But if law enforcement feels strongly that a certain person would be appropriate, my office will speak with them. But generally it's these ordinance and misdemeanor offenses such as disorderly conduct, criminal damage to property, obstructing, resisting. A lot of those crimes that disorderly conducts take up a huge amount of court time and prosecutor time. So if they have committed one of the eligible offenses, then the proxy form that law enforcement completes will be used to refer these offenders to our office. And Dunn County is very fortunate in that both the Menominee Police Department and the Dunn County Sheriff's Department, or office, excuse me, are open to diverting certain eligible offenders to this program. Eau Claire County, who started their program 5-6 years ago, originally only started out just with the police department, and now we're only 5 years later starting to get the sheriff's department. So I think the collaboration with the CJCC has really opened the mind of law enforcement here in Dunn County, and so we're lucky to have both those agencies and hopefully Colfax and Boysville as well, who will participate in the program. Oh, sorry, UW Stout. Sorry, Lisa. The program is going to be 6 month in length. It is much longer than other counties. Eau Claire County is only 60 days, but through the CJCC and the Deferred Work Group, it was important to law enforcement to have a longer period of time. And I think it's appropriate for Dunn County. We don't have to be the same as other counties, and we thought that 6 months was a good amount of time to allow an offender to prove that they made a mistake, they're learning from it, and they're going to remain crime-free. Participants also have to watch an educational video, which will be administered through Sarah Benedict's office. And then once they complete that video, they will complete a thinking report to essentially reflect on the crime that was committed, and also make sure that they learned something from the video and were paying attention. And then they have to pay restitution. And victim impact or input is quite important, for my office when we have especially restitution involved for a victim, and we want to make victims whole in this process. But as many of you are aware, what usually happens in our system is it takes months and months and months for a case to get closed. And usually the offender is put on a deferred agreement or placed on probation, and then it takes another 6 months or a year for a victim to get the restitution. So in just talking to other counties, that's one of the really items that's beneficial to victims. They might think that they're getting a slap on the wrist and that they're not getting jail time, but they also are getting their money right away. I mean, they can't leave the program until they've paid restitution full. So if restitution's not being paid, or if they commit another crime, if they don't watch the video, my office moves to revoke the agreement, and then we start over. File a criminal complaint or issue the ordinance citation, and we're back where we started. Deanna Arnson is our new deferred prosecution coordinator. She's up in the front, gray shirt, little curls her hair. She's part-time, and she's been doing a great job. She was in our victim witness department of our office, so she's very familiar with the system. And as Commander Swartz indicated, she's checking CCAP, checking criminal history, checking our Protect system, which is the online database that prosecutors have to ensure that someone hasn't had the opportunity to complete a deferred agreement somewhere else. St. Croix County, Chippewa County, Eau Claire County all do these pre-charge diversion programs, as well as many others across the state. But the reasoning behind it is you get one shot, one more chance if you commit one of these eligible offenses to get your act together, learn from it, and hopefully come out on the other end. And then my office and law enforcement and the judges can focus on these high-risk, serious offenses. Also, there may be a potential community service or program fee for the program. It was at our last deferred meeting agreed to a $50 fee to participate or 6 hours of community service. That yet has to be approved by the CJCC and go to the county board. So that's yet to be determined. But those are the essential terms of the pre-charge diversion program. I think it's very exciting to see that all of these CJCC meetings have really paid off. And in a year we've developed this new program and we're moving forward. And it's an evidence-based research practice that should hopefully make our community safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nodolph. Now, One of the things here that I want to point out, and you may have noticed that many of these things are really common sense. For example, if you have antisocial thoughts and you hang out with antisocial peers, you're probably going to get in trouble. You're probably going to be the people committing crimes. But some of the things that we have that we're dealing with are not quite as intuitive, if you will. For example, what we found is that the research tells us that people who are coerced into treatment or pressured into treatment often have as good or better outcomes as those who are motivated to get the treatment. Cherise Nielsen is an area supervisor for the Department of Corrections, and she's going to talk to you about what the Department of Corrections has started with evidence-based response to violations. Cherise, take it away.
So with the Department of Corrections, we've been using evidence-based practices in the department for approximately 5 years now. And with that, we've moved many different things that we are doing. And the latest one has been responses to violations. We're doing things differently than we used to do, based on the research that we have found. So that doesn't mean we were doing things wrong before. It just means that we were doing the best that we could with the knowledge that we had. Now we have new knowledge and better knowledge, and so now we've changed what we're doing. And I must give credit to my boss for all of the characters and stuff in the slides. This is her presentation. I just pulled some from hers. So here's that part of we're rethinking what we're doing. So we've moved to using 4 core competencies, which is an evidence-based principle. And so we're focusing a lot more on professional alliance and engaging offenders in supervision, not them just coming in and saying, you must do this, this, and this, but we're engaging them in that process. Using effective case planning and management. Our previous case plans were basically write some stuff on a piece of paper and put it in a file. We never used it. Now our case plans are interactive. The offenders are part of that, and it's updated constantly. So it's a living, breathing document throughout their entire supervision. Practice skills and cognitive behavioral interventions. The staff have all been trained in doing homework with all of our offenders now, so they're doing cognitive-based homework with them. We also